Last question for us in this episode is from IBES in Florida. And the question is, and this is a big one, Mina, I think we're going to have to contain ourselves or we'll be here for an hour just answering this question. Who is considered the greatest all-time Serie A player and the greatest all-time Italian player?
This is so difficult. Okay, so weirdly enough, if you talk to me about like culture and who represents it and who would be the figurehead and who would be the poster child and who for me is Italian football, I will always say Roberto Baggio. It's just, I don't know why. And here's the thing, like it was funny because as soon as this question popped up, I immediately thought Roberto Baggio. And Nikki was hoping that I would say that so she can, come back at me. But I also realized that I was too young to really see him at his brilliance or to focus enough on it. Like, I guess for me, when he had reached the pinnacle, I was still a kid. It wasn't like I was watching football day and night, so I could really understand what it is that made him beautiful. But I remember thinking he made me fall in love with football because of the way that he played it, because of his magic on the ball, because of his courage on the ball, because of his ability to change games, because of our dependency on him for the Italian national team in 1994, because he was a leader, but also came across as like this really nice guy. And weirdly enough, when his daughter posted on Instagram all the reasons why she loves her father because it was his birthday the other day, I'm not going to lie, I had like a tear in my eye, because I could totally feel everything she was feeling because, just she describes how he can't stop looking at his wife. And I don't know now whether I'm just in love with him because I just think he's a really nice guy more than I think he's a great footballer, But it's difficult, again, because in my head, when I think of the brilliance of Italian football, I think of Franco Baresi. So I just think like if there's one thing that everyone tries to come at you, you will have everything in your world. You may have Lothar Matthäus, or you may have, I don't know, Ronaldo, the original, or Lionel Messi, but Italy had Baresi. And he is single-handedly, for me, the greatest defender of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I was being a bit sort of just messing around when you were saying you say Baggio, and I had this plan to come back at you because all I was going to do was wait for you to say Baggio and say, well, Baggio missed the penalty in the World Cup final, whereas Baresi came back with a miracle from his knee injury in a few weeks that should have kept him out and played a brilliant World Cup final. Honestly, one of the best defensive games I think I've seen from someone, or at least that's how I remember it. And of course, I was little in 1994, so I'm sure some of it is tinged with nostalgia. But I think we could argue about lots of these players, and as Mina says, in the end, like so much of it is actually about your own personal memories. And the same as Mina, I have a very sort of strong attachment to Roberto Baggio. I remember crying when he missed that penalty in 1994, and I remember being in that way that you get to be when you're a kid, hot with anger at the Italian media sort of going after him afterwards. And there was this story about how, because he was, he'd come out, it's a ridiculous way of phrasing it. He'd sort of, started talking openly about Buddhism. And there was this story I remember when I was a kid about he was going to be excommunicated by the Catholic Church. And I was a kid who was brought up in a very sort of loosely religious household. We were Catholic because my Italian family are Catholics, so you went to church, but it wasn't very sort of strongly sort of part of our identities, I suppose. And I remember being sort of furious at the church for that, like it was wrong because Baggio couldn't be wrong. And I think personally, in terms of players I'm most attached to, yes, he's right up there. I think there's so many though you could do in Italian football. There's some that I can't comment on because they're before me, which is Gaetano Scirea, people like that. There's some who I think of as maybe the best of their positions. Baresi is one. Maldini, do I think there's been a better fullback that I've watched? Again, is it my Italian bias? I don't know, but I think he's magnificent and went on for so long. I am willing to argue with anyone that Gigi Buffon was the best goalkeeper of all time. So how do you weigh a goalkeeper against an outfield player? And right. And this is just, by the way, and I think our producer Simon is trying to like highlight things in our shared document to remind us we're just talking about the Italians, because you actually asked two questions, which is who is the greatest Italian player and who's the greatest Serie A player. You can't talk about the greatest players in Serie A and not mention Maradona, for instance, or the Brazilian Ronaldo, whom you already did mention, or maybe even Zidane. I don't know. There's such a long list that you can go on forever with these conversations. I think probably
Maradona
yes.
is the greatest Serie A player. Yeah, for sure. But it's weird that the greatest Serie A player is not Italian as well. I don't know.
Well, I think the question of whether he's the greatest Serie A player of all time probably comes down to the age-old debates that we always come down to when you talk about greatest evers, which is what do you prize more, Mina? Do you prize the individual talent, which I think is Maradona? Maradona has this inside himself pure talent, this pure instinct that nobody else had. But do you prize that ahead of the player who was more serious as a professional and still had a huge amount of talent, and so sustained that success for a decade or longer? Because we have examples of that in Italian football. We have our Maldinis who went on and on and on. Whereas Maradona is more about, but when he was special, he was everything. And I think that is a debate that you can have forever, and comes down to your personality in the end. But yes, Maradona was something else.
It's funny how much your memories do affect things, and also which players you got. Like Ronaldinho was, for me personally, one of my favorite ever players. Like he is still the person that I will search probably the most on YouTube, you know. But he, what he was in Spain is not the same as what he was in Italy. Do you know what I mean? Or like a Redondo, who is, again, the reason I fell in love with football, and Del Piero as well. But that was more because of my age, and I started supporting Juventus and whatever it is. But incidentally, Baggio is the reason why I will, and I've never been able to stop myself, but it's kind of why I hate Saki. Like I feel like he is the reason for the downfall. Like he leaned so heavily on him in '94 and then just blamed him for the penalty and didn't call him, and I just didn't stick up for him. And there's a part of me that has never really forgiven Prandelli, which weirdly enough did a great job for Italy, but because of bringing on Cassano in the World Cup when we needed to be a counter-attacking presence, and giving Marchisio too much to do, so he got a red card. And it's almost like if they're really great players and the coach did something against them that I didn't like, I just don't know how to forgive very well, and I carry this little pettiness with me all the time. So, but yeah, obviously there's also been Cristiano Ronaldo. I was obsessed with Recoba, but we never really saw him as being anything other than enigmatic for Inter, because you knew he had it. You knew, wow, what a player he was, So yeah, there are several, and I was thinking of doing this as a running theme, because I just think that we could discuss this forever. But
we could pick two every week and argue again.
Yeah, I really do feel that way, because we're so blessed to have had like a great, like honestly, last 30 years, since I think '86 was the pinnacle of international football at the time. Laudrup is another one that I was madly obsessed with. Anyway. But it is what it is. And yeah, I think that's what we have time for. But do come back with us with any comments you may have on these questions and how we answered that one in particular. But can I just read you something that our producer just wrote? And I don't know whether he's a Roma fan who just hates me right now, but he says a long answer to say Maradona is the greatest Serie A player and Baggio is the greatest Italian. So now you know what he thinks. And he keeps highlighting all the time. Okay, we get it. It's Maradona and Baggio. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed the Serie A Chronicles Q&A. Check out our website at serieachronicles.com and click the Chronicles Tifosi button to join our Patreon community, where you'll get access to exclusive episodes and bonus content. Or you can choose to contribute a smaller amount as a supporter without the bonus content if you just want to help us keep Serie A Chronicles running. Get your questions in on Twitter. We do love answering and arguing about them at Serie A Chronpod with the hashtag Chronicles Q&A, or go to our website to email us, or to even send us a voice message like we had last week, and we'll put the audio of you asking your question on the show. Find us both on Twitter at Nikki Bandini, at Mina Rizuki, and subscribe to the Serie A Chronicles YouTube channel for clips of the show, where mostly I'm eating, putting on my lipstick, and Nikki's just got 15 documents on her computer trying to figure out which
Too many
one to
things
listen to.
open, always. I'm that person with 100 tabs. Like, that's how I live.
I just feel like if you went to like computer, it's just a mess, you know.
Brain. It's just things everywhere.
It's why you're so smart. It's why you're so smart. Leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be back obviously next Friday to answer even more questions. And let's see if we can try to upset our producer a little bit more. Ciao for now. That was brilliant. I told you when you said it, you just put it in such a like a, oh, for goodness sakes, you know it's Maradona and bad. You're like, why are we even here? You know, like it made me really laugh when I saw it. Yeah, and then in my head I was like, we didn't even mention Maradona, and I was like, not even Platini has come on, by the way, as a possible.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is what it is. Yeah,
we didn't mention Totti. Yeah, we didn't mention Totti, which is crazy, really. But I mean,
see, I told you we can do this every week.
Yeah,
that was brilliant, guys. Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
That was really fun. Yeah, that was a really fun Q&A as well.